Dawn broke over the jagged mountain range near the western border. The SEAL unit was trapped in a deadly ambush. Enemy forces surrounded them on three sides. Their escape route was completely cut off. The radio crackled desperately through static. Need immediate support. Grid 17 Alpha. No sniper coverage. No overwatch available. Only silence answered back from command, until a bullet whistled through the morning air, threading through a narrow gap in the rocks, striking its distant target with surgical precision. A whispered voice came through the calm. Shadow 9, target acquired. Meet Ina Rains, 35 years old, chestnut brown hair pulled back in a tight military bun, slender frame standing exactly 5'4". Piercing gray eyes always hidden behind dark aviator sunglasses. Her current official position, weapons maintenance specialist for sniper rifles at Bravo Ridge Training Facility, tucked away in the remote Thorn Highlands, far from any major military installation. Nobody in the entire unit knew much about her mysterious background. Her official military title read simply, Barrel Testing Technician. Confined to the repair shop and armory every single day, Ina would methodically carry the old M82A1 Barrett rifle, carefully measure barrel vibrations and harmonics, test scope alignments, and return the weapons in complete silence to the equipment racks. New SEALs arriving for advanced training would often joke among themselves. That quiet lady probably just polishes scopes all day. What would she possibly know about actual combat shooting? Sergeant Parker would regularly crack jokes during morning briefings. We've got our phantom tech working in the back, but this ghost probably can't hit anything beyond 100 meters on her best day. Ina would simply smile quietly, nod politely, and continue writing detailed notes in her weathered leather notebook. She never ate meals with the others in the mess hall. Nobody ever saw her conducting personal training or practice sessions. But mysteriously, every morning, the practice weapons were arranged perfectly according to current wind conditions and atmospheric pressure. One particularly strange thing, without any formal instruction or guidance, every SEAL trainee somehow learned that if they wanted to adjust their shot trajectory in stormy weather conditions, they should quietly ask her for advice. Only training commander Clint Marlowe had noticed something distinctly different about her approach. She checks wind patterns by listening carefully to stones rolling in the distance. I've been in this business for 20 years and I've never seen anyone do that before. The cramped repair shop became her personal sanctuary. Surrounded by completely disassembled rifles, detailed ballistic charts covering every available wall, and a custom workbench that held secrets nobody suspected or questioned, Ina moved with a peculiar, almost mechanical precision that spoke of muscle memory. When she cleaned a rifle barrel, her hands followed practice patterns that spoke of thousands of repetitions under pressure. When she tested optical scopes, her breathing automatically fell into a rhythm that combat veterans recognized but couldn't quite place. The younger soldiers naturally assumed she was just another support staff member who happened to know her way around standard weapon systems. They'd watch her methodically checking each rifle's 0 point, calibrating complex optics, and making minute adjustments to trigger mechanisms. What they didn't notice was how she instinctively positioned herself near all exits during any gathering, how her eyes constantly scanned rooftops and elevated positions even during casual conversations, how she could identify the make and model of approaching vehicles by their engine sound alone, often before they came into view. During routine equipment inspections, Ina would run her fingers along rifle stocks like a concert pianist touching familiar keys. She could detect microscopic fractures in metal components, predict exactly when a firing pin would fail, and spot counterfeit ammunition from across the entire room. But her most unnerving habit was the complete silence of her movement. She could move through the facility like morning mist, appearing and disappearing without making a single sound. Even seasoned special operations veterans would find her suddenly beside them, having approached completely undetected. The locked steel cabinet in the corner of her workshop remained an unsolved mystery. Standard issue equipment lived in open racks for easy access, but this particular military locker stayed permanently sealed. Only Ina had the numerical combination. One Special Forces operator later recalled during debriefing, "I asked her directly if she'd ever shot in real combat situations. She looked at me for a long, uncomfortable moment, then said quietly, 'I fired once,' and kept an entire team alive for 6 extra minutes until the helicopter arrived for extraction." Nothing more. No bragging, no details, just that simple statement. 3 nights into their classified field operation, SEAL Team 12 moved cautiously into the treacherous Western Hill Country for reconnaissance on a suspected enemy command center. But the military intelligence maps were completely wrong. They found themselves surrounded by at least 22 well-armed hostiles, equipped with heavy machine guns, advanced surveillance drones, and night vision equipment. Both of the SEAL team's designated snipers were eliminated in the violent opening minutes of the ambush. No tactical high ground available for overwatch positions. No artillery support available due to completely lost communications with base. No air cover or helicopter extraction possible in current weather conditions. No backup plan had accounted for this level of enemy preparation. Sergeant Parker transmitted desperately into his handheld radio through heavy static. "All sniper assets down. We have 0 overwatch capability. Need immediate support. Anyone available." The mountainous terrain created a deadly natural funnel. Enemy forces held commanding tactical positions on the surrounding ridgelines, with clear fields of fire down into the narrow valley where the SEALs were completely pinned down. Muzzle flashes erupted from carefully concealed positions. Bullets ricocheted violently off rocks, sending deadly metal fragments in all directions. The team huddled behind inadequate natural cover as sustained machine gun fire raked their defensive position. "Contact left! Contact right!" Multiple voices shouted over the deafening gunfire. Ammunition supplies were running dangerously low. Medical supplies were nearly exhausted after treating wounded. 3 team members were already seriously wounded, including their primary communications specialist who controlled satellite uplinks. The enemy was demonstrating advanced military tactics, perfectly coordinated fire patterns, sophisticated surveillance drones, and what appeared to be thermal imaging equipment to track the Americans' movements even in complete darkness. Radio intercepts suggested the enemy had been planning this ambush for weeks, waiting for exactly this type of special operations incursion. Back at Bravo Ridge Base, the emergency distress signal leaked onto auxiliary military traffic that weren't supposed to carry operational traffic. The base was nearly completely empty. Most personnel were either deployed overseas or off duty for the weekend. Only Ina remained in the workshop, conducting her routine nightly equipment checks and maintenance procedures. She heard the crackling emergency transmission through her handheld administrative radio that shouldn't have picked up field communications. Heavy breathing, desperate voices calling for help, the distinctive metallic sound of ammunition being hastily reloaded under extreme stress echoed through the static interference. For a long moment, she stood completely frozen. The voices transported her back to another mountainside, another desperate night, another team that needed salvation from an impossible situation. Ina walked slowly to the locked cabinet. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered the memorized combination that she hadn't used in over 2 years. Inside, an HTR-47 rifle, completely unmarked, burnt sienna finish wrapped carefully in faded canvas, effective operational range 2.2 kilometers. Only someone with dynamic flight reflex conditioning could operate it effectively in adverse wind conditions and atmospheric disturbances. This wasn't standard military equipment available through normal channels. The rifle had been custom built for a particular type of warfare, the kind that officially didn't exist in any military records. She didn't wait for official orders, didn't request permission from command structure. 14 minutes later, from a carefully selected position 3 kilometers north of the firefight, the first bullet tore through the mountain wind and punched through the protective eyewear of the enemy squad leader, directing the coordinated assault. The second precision round completely destroyed a heavy machine gun emplacement. The third bullet threaded through a narrow gap in the rocks and disabled the enemy's main communications array. Back in the valley, the SEALs froze in complete confusion. Sergeant Parker whispered urgently, "Who's providing sniper support? We don't have any backup snipers deployed in this area." Then a calm, professional voice came through their auxiliary radio channel. "Shadow 9 is online and providing overwatch." One SEAL team member whispered quietly to another, "That call sign, I thought it was just a battlefield legend from the Iraq theater. Some kind of ghost sniper who appeared when situations became impossible." The enemy advance suddenly faltered dramatically. Confusion rippled through their organized ranks as their leadership was systematically eliminated by an invisible marksman operating from an unknown position. From her perfectly concealed position, Ina controlled the entire battlefield like a conductor, directing the lethal symphony. Each shot was calculated not just for immediate accuracy, but for maximum psychological impact on enemy morale. She targeted the enemy's confidence and coordination, not just their physical capabilities. Radio chatter erupted among the hostile forces. Their coordinated assault dissolved into panicked repositioning as they desperately tried to locate the phantom sniper, who seemed to see everything while remaining completely invisible. The SEALs began to understand they weren't just receiving random covering fire. They were witnessing pure artistry in combat marksmanship. Each bullet arrived exactly when needed, precisely where it would do the most tactical good. Equipment was disabled rather than destroyed when possible. Enemy fighters were wounded rather than killed when it served the overall tactical situation better. This wasn't random shooting or spray-and-pray tactics. This was surgical intervention by someone who understood combat at a level that transcended normal military training and standard operating procedures. A surviving SEAL later testified during official debriefing, "We never saw her position, just heard the metallic sound of equipment moving, then complete silence. Every shot meant the enemy pulled back a little more. She saved our lives without needing anyone to know she was there." After exactly 42 minutes of precision shooting, the enemy forces withdrew completely from the contested area. 7 SEALs survived the encounter, 3 wounded, but none fatally injured. When asked by command who provided the life-saving covering fire, they could only report unknown friendly sniper. But whoever it was didn't use modern equipment or standard protocols, just pure skill, absolute mastery of marksmanship. Back at base headquarters, Marlowe carefully reviewed auxiliary drone footage that had captured fragments of the engagement. A shadowy figure lay prone against a cliff face, hands gripping earth for stability. No body armor, no standard uniform, no visible identification. Shooting accurately in thermal inversion conditions, a technique previously exclusive to the classified X-Delta Special Sniper Unit that officially didn't exist. The military system's data decryption protocols unlocked a heavily classified file. Name, Ina Rains. Operational call sign, Shadow 9. Security classification, Top Secret Tier 0. Operational notes, single shot, kept 6 people alive. Refuses all recognition, 0 media contact authorized. Ina had previously belonged to Raven 12, a stateless sniper unit that operated outside normal military command structures, assigned to missions that command couldn't officially acknowledge or document in standard military records. After her teammates died during the classified Operation Rogue Red, she refused promotion opportunities, requested immediate discharge from active duty, and applied to work as a weapons technician at Bravo Ridge. The file revealed fragments of a story that explained everything and nothing simultaneously. Shadow 9 had been more than just a military call sign. It was a legend whispered among special operations communities worldwide. The sniper who appeared when situations became impossible, who could eliminate targets from distances that defied belief, who never left evidence and never sought credit or recognition. But legends weren't supposed to be real people, and they certainly weren't supposed to be working quietly in repair shops, fixing other people's weapons while their own extraordinary skills gathered dust. The classified sections of her military file painted a picture of operations that sounded like complete fiction. Hostage rescues in urban environments where a single bullet through a window had ended standoffs. Military advisors extracted from hostile territory by precision fire that had cleared entire escape routes without the enemy understanding what was happening. In Somalia, she'd protected a medical convoy for 6 continuous hours from a position over a mile away. In Afghanistan, she neutralized an entire sniper team that had been terrorizing a forward operating base for weeks. But Operation Rogue Red had changed everything, permanently. Her entire unit had been compromised by intelligence failures. Bad information led them into a carefully prepared trap. For 18 continuous hours, Ina held an impossible position, covering her teammates' attempted extraction under heavy fire. One by one, they'd fallen despite her best efforts. The final transmission from that mission contained only her voice. Raven 12 is gone. Shadow 9 going dark permanently. She'd saved herself through superior positioning and skill, but at the terrible cost of watching her chosen family die, while she remained helplessly distant, able to see everything but unable to save the people who mattered most. Sergeant Parker found Ina in the workshop, methodically cleaning her rifle with practiced movements. "I used to laugh at you constantly, thought you were just maintenance crew. But yesterday I heard those shots. I realized those weren't the sounds of death approaching. Those were the sounds of life returning to us." Ina didn't respond immediately. She handed him a detailed hand-drawn wind map. "Next time, if you need high ground for tactical advantage, don't dismiss it just because it's not marked on official GPS systems." The map was a genuine work of art. Every ridge, every depression, every wind pattern had been documented with the precision of someone who understood that topography was the difference between life and death in combat. Parker studied the detailed notations carefully. Distances measured to the exact meter, wind speeds calculated for different times of day and weather conditions. Concealment positions marked with symbols he didn't recognize but somehow understood intuitively. "How long have you been preparing this detailed map?" he asked. "Since the day I arrived at this facility," Ina replied. "I knew someday someone would need what I could give. I hoped I wouldn't have to give it alone again." The workshop suddenly felt completely different. The scattered tools and rifle parts now seemed like the carefully organized arsenal of someone who had never stopped being a soldier, despite wearing civilian clothes and maintaining a low profile. Every seemingly mundane piece of equipment had been positioned with tactical consideration. The workbench provided clear sightlines to all entrances. The lighting was arranged to eliminate shadows where threats could hide. Even the coffee mug sat in a position where it couldn't be used to throw reflections that might give away her position. Marlowe entered the workshop carrying a thick classified folder. "We know who you really are," he said simply. Ina looked up from her work. For the first time since anyone could remember, she removed her dark glasses. Her gray eyes held depths that spoke of distances measured in miles and consequences measured in lives saved or lost. "I'm a weapons technician," she said quietly. "You're Shadow 9. I was Shadow 9. Now I'm just someone who fixes other people's mistakes before they become fatal." The weight of that statement settled over the room like morning fog. Here was someone who chose anonymity over fame, maintenance over glory, helping others succeed rather than claiming credit for her own extraordinary skills. Marlowe set the folder on her workbench. "The military wants to reactivate your clearance. Full reinstatement, your own unit." Ina shook her head slowly.
"I'm done taking lives.
Now I just want to preserve them." She gestured to the rifles surrounding them. "Every weapon I repair might save someone's teammate. Every scope I calibrate might help someone get home. That's enough purpose for me now." For comment, she didn't fight for credit. She fought for cover. If you believe there are people who don't need the spotlight because they are the reason others survive in the darkness, after that life-changing night, the SEAL unit began incorporating anti-radar reflex training into their standard curriculum and advanced tactical procedures. Aina refused the offered instructor position in all official recognition, but every new recruit learned to read wind pattern using grass blades and the dilation of wounded eyes, techniques that had no official manual. An internal document began circulating throughout the special operations community. Shadow 9 methodology. Shoot with breathing rhythm, not laser points. Success measured in lives preserved, not targets eliminated. The northern training range where Aina had made her impossible shots was preserved exactly as she left it. No official nameplate attached, no plaques or monuments. But every SEAL completing training would bow their head there for a moment of respectful silence. A young soldier wrote in his personal training journal, "I used to think sniping was the art of elimination and destruction, but she showed me it's the art of giving others the chance to retreat safely." The transformation went deeper than just technique and methodology. The entire culture of the training facility shifted dramatically. Conversations in the mess hall changed completely. Instead of bragging about kill counts and impossible shots, soldiers began discussing protection angles and civilian evacuation routes during combat operations. New recruits arriving at Bravo Ridge found a different atmosphere than they expected. The competitive machismo that typically dominated special operations training had been tempered by something more profound. The understanding that the ultimate measure of a warrior wasn't enemies defeated, but friendlies brought home safely. Aina's workshop became an unofficial pilgrimage site for serious students of marksmanship. Soldiers would find excuses to bring weapons for routine maintenance just to observe her work closely. They'd watch her hands move with mechanical precision, noting how she tested every component as if lives depended on its performance, because they did depend on it. The older operators began sharing stories they'd previously kept classified under strict orders. Tales of impossible shots made by invisible guardians, missions saved by marksmen who appeared from nowhere and vanished without recognition or reward. They'd whisper about the Angel of Ramadi, who'd protected supply convoys without ever being seen. The Ghost of Hellman, who'd eliminated entire enemy cells from positions that surveillance could never locate. Now they understood these weren't separate legends. They were chapters in the story of one woman who'd chosen to become everyone's guardian angel and no one's celebrated hero. Training exercises evolved to incorporate her methodologies and philosophical approach. Instructors taught students to shoot, not just at targets, but for effect, understanding how each bullet could influence the tactical situation, beyond simply hitting or missing the intended target. The psychological aspects of precision shooting became part of the official curriculum. Students learned that sometimes the most important shot was the one that convinced an enemy to seek cover, buying precious seconds for friendlies to maneuver safely. But the most significant change was philosophical and cultural. The facility's motto had always been death from above. After Aina's intervention, it quietly became life from the shadows. Nobody announced the change officially. No official memorandums were issued by command. It simply appeared one day, painted in the same official font as if it had always been there. The new motto appeared on everything: training manuals, equipment, even coffee mugs in the mess hall. A training instructor later explained to new recruits, "Shadow 9 taught us that the best sniper isn't the one who never misses. It's the one who never has to shoot, because their presence alone changes everything." Aina never accepted the Medal of Honor offered by High Command, never attended the official award ceremony held in her honor, continued fixing scopes and calibrating weapons like any other ordinary day. But the SEALs would whisper to each other during quiet moments, "If you hear a bullet whistle from an unexpected direction, don't worry. It might be her, still watching over us." 1 year later, Aina left the base without fanfare or announcement.
no goodbye ceremony or formal departure, no transfer paperwork filed with personnel. But in her old position inside the equipment drawer, they found a message carved carefully with the knife. If you're still alive, you still have the chance to keep others alive too. The Shadow 9 methodology was eventually integrated into the highest level military training programs across all branches of service, but nobody officially taught it in classrooms. Only videos remained. 3 perfect shots, no repetition, and breathing steady as still water on a calm lake. Whenever new soldiers asked their instructors who was Shadow 9 exactly, they were told, someone who didn't want you to remember their name, only wanted you to remember to draw your weapon at exactly the right time. The workshop was converted into an unofficial memorial, though no plaques identified what memorialized or honored. The workbench remained exactly as Aina had left it, tools arranged with surgical precision. Visitors would find themselves unconsciously lowering their voices, sensing they stood in a place where extraordinary dedication had been quietly practiced every single day. Years passed slowly. The legend grew in the whispered conversations of special operations communities worldwide. Shadow 9 became a symbol of selfless professionalism, of warriors who fought not for personal glory, but for the simple right of others to go home safely. New generations of snipers would invoke her name before difficult shots, not as superstition, but as a reminder of what their craft could achieve when guided by the right intentions and moral purpose. The greatest tribute came from an unexpected source: the enemy fighters who'd survived that night in the Western Hills. In their own whispered stories, they spoke of the invisible angel who'd convinced them that some positions were too dangerous to hold, some attacks too costly to continue. They'd learned to recognize the signature of Shadow 9's intervention: precision that persuaded rather than punished, lethality that protected rather than persecuted. Aina Reigns had become what every true warrior aspired to be: someone whose greatest victories were measured not in enemies defeated, but friendlies who lived to fight another day. Somewhere in some remote corner of the world, she continues her quiet work, not for medals or recognition, but for the simple satisfaction of knowing that when darkness falls and hope seems lost, there's still someone watching from the shadows. Still someone ready to answer when the desperate call for help. Still someone who understands that the most important shot isn't the one that ends the fight. It's the one that gives everyone else the chance to make it home. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe to Iron Heart Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.